Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about my April TBR. I cannot believe I am saying that it's April already. I'm still technically in March, but next week is the last few days of March. And I just feel like this year is going very, very fast. And I don't know if it's just me, but usually I feel like the first half of the year goes really slow and then it just goes very quickly. But this year just feels like it's flying by and I don't know why. So hopefully this month I'm going to read a lot of really fun, enjoyable things because I feel like March has been just a very deep, dark, heavy reading month. I read a book that made me cry. I read a book that dealt with an abusive relationship that was glorified. I am now reading a thriller and I just need some really fun reads. I can't deal with any more darkness. So I've kind of picked books that are kind of fun in genre or they have fun topics just because I feel like I need something light and just something that isn't going to leave me in a very bad mood because March was something else for reading. So the first book that I want to read in April is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This came out, I believe, in March, so it's a fairly new release. And this is basically about a woman named Vera Wong, and she essentially runs a tea room, and one day she finds a body in that tea room and the police are pretty much useless with the investigation, so she decides to become a sleuth herself because she feels like she can do a better job. And I just think this sounds so fun. Even though it involves murder, I feel like this is going to be a really fun packed like mystery thriller with like this old woman who's really nosy. So I can't wait to see what I think of this. I've never read anything by this author before, but I believe they wrote a book called, I think it's like Call A for Aunties or something, and I feel like that had really good reviews at the time. I've never read it myself, so I'm kind of hoping that this one is just going to be a really fun ride with this woman who's just nosy and becomes an amateur sleuth, because who doesn't want to be an amateur sleuth? So the next book that I want to read in April is actually one that I was almost considering reading in March instead of my TBR, and that is Bloodlines by Rochelle Mead. There is no other reason that I want to read this book other than the fact that I just was really in the mood for it, and I still am in the mood for it. I think because I started listening to the Twilight soundtrack again, and then I started remembering how much I love vampires. Like, why can't vampires still be an in thing? Like, why do we have to have genres that are in and genres that have had their time? I want the vampire hype again because vampires are cool. So this is essentially a spin-off series to the Vampire Academy series, and I read the Vampire Academy series back to back in 2021 I believe, and I absolutely loved it. I would still to this day say that it's one of my guilty pleasures. I definitely feel like for me personally it was a series that stood the test of time because obviously it is an old YA. Now this is a spin-off. It follows Sydney, who we meet kind of like later on in the series, and she is essentially, I can't remember, I feel like she's human, but she basically protects the human world from the vampire world and vice versa. And obviously her last encounter with Rose got her in a lot of trouble because, you know, those lines were getting very blurred and they were just wreaking havoc throughout the world. Now in this book, Sydney is tasked with protecting a very high-ranking vampire who is basically in trouble somehow, and that's really all I know and that's all I want to know. Now I did get recommended this series by I think a viewer at one point on one of my older videos when I said how much I really loved the Vampire Academy series, and they said, you know, you need to read Bloodlines as well. So I am excited to jump in. I'm really hoping I enjoy it as much as Vampire Academy, but I also feel like half the reason I really loved that series was because I really loved the character Rose. I just thought she was such a badass. I loved her witty humour, and I really just want this to be as fun, you know? So the next book that I want to read in April is King of Raph by Anna Huang. This is the same author that wrote like the Twisted series. I believe that's a 4-book series. I did read that all last year back to back. Now I rated each book 3 stars. That's not to say that it was bad. I found them really entertaining, and to be honest, Anna Huang's writing is just so fast-paced and easy to read and really entertaining, and honestly, this month I just want to be entertained, and I feel like she's an author that I could easily go to when I want that. So this essentially follows Dante Russo, who I do believe we met at the end of the other series, and we don't really know much about him. He just seems kind of shady, and he had a woman named Vivian with him, and essentially this book follows them as they have a marriage of convenience. Essentially Dante is being blackmailed, and so he has to fake marry Vivian, and things ensue from there, and that is literally all I know. I didn't want to read too much of the blurb on this one because I really honestly feel like with romance books there's not much to tell other than that, and if there are any surprising aspects in it, I'd rather just be surprised by them than have to read it on the blurb. And in all honesty, I wasn't actually intending to ever read this book because obviously I did read the Twisted series and I thought it was okay. The guys were a little bit red flaggy, the romance was okay, I just found them entertaining, like they didn't blow my mind or anything. But when I went book shopping the other day with my friend, I saw King of Raph on the shelves, and I think the cover for this is so pretty, and I kind of just wanted to read it from then on out. So I am hopefully going to read this in April. So then the last book that I want to read in April is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I have heard nothing but good things about this book. So this is a sapphic romance. So this follows a woman named Delilah, and she gets dragged into doing her stepsister's photography for her wedding, and there she meets a woman named Claire, and Claire is her stepsister's stuck-up bestie, and they do not get along. They absolutely despise each other, so it's a little bit of like an enemies to lovers. Now this actually will possibly be my first ever sapphic romance. So the reason that I want to read this is because I've heard so many good things everywhere about it, and I definitely want to read some sapphic romance this year. So if you have any recommendations for any that you really enjoyed, please leave them below. In fact, if you have any like LGBTQ romances that you enjoy, then just leave them below. I really want to see if I enjoy this. I have really incredibly high hopes, and I always try not to, but I do have them for this book because it sounds fantastic. I love a good enemies to lovers, especially when the tension is there, and I just can't wait to see how this one pans out. I'm just hoping I enjoy it, because if I don't at least rate this a 4 or 5 stars, I will hate myself. So those are the 4 books that I'm hoping to read in April. Obviously I will be hoping to read maybe 1 or 2 more books than this, but I like to leave a little bit of space open just so that I can decide what else I want to pick up during the month if I have some time. If you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, then please leave your thoughts on them below. I'd love to know what you thought. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content from me. And until the next video, I will see you then. So bye guys.